7 years ago this month, a group of friends met in Omaha, Nebraska. Yeah, come on. I knew you would say that. Downtown Omaha, Nebraska, in a small condo to discuss what we could do with our growing frustration around what we would call a staffing crisis in churches. Some came from a Christian higher ed background. Some came from seminaries. Some were churchy consultants. All of us had a background, though, serving on dynamic churches in staff roles around the country. We were all sensing a growing issue over the previous decade, asking ourselves, where are the future leaders? Where are the future leaders? Many of us in church leadership know this feeling all too well, and if you've been here, if you're here in this room and you're leading a church or leading a ministry, I know that you have dreams and visions that are big for your future. About the ministry you could build, the people you could reach, the good that you could do in your community, and yet you don't have the team potentially to help you get there. Or maybe you did at one point. Maybe the young Gen Z 21-year-old came onto the team, but you weren't prepared and you weren't equipped to actually develop them, and they've moved on to a better opportunity. Over those 2.5 days in Omaha, in that little condo, we penciled out what would eventually become known as Leadership Pathway. And eventually the strategic questions and frustrations over those 2 days of meetings became a process by which church leaders had a framework that can receive young leaders into a residency program. And much like a teaching hospital, these churches are now learning what it means to be a teaching church. So this is residency for all churches everywhere, not just the biggest. 137 residents later, we've learned a lot. We have learned a lot. Fast forward to today, some of those earliest residents now, after finishing residency, are in their 4th, 5th, and 6th year of full-time ministry, and now they have a residency of their own. Those residents are now talking about the 3rd generation of who is to come in residency at their organization. When we get this right, amazing things can happen. A church gets a younger leader on their team, sometimes for the first time in a decade or more. These 23 and 24-year-olds are walking into these church staffs, and sometimes the next youngest person around the table is 35 or 40, which to them is very old. They not only get a young person at the table, though, they get a sustainable pipeline for the future. Of course, it's not easy. If it was easy, seminaries wouldn't be struggling, and Christian universities would not be struggling with their ministry programs, and the cottage industry of search and staffing and headhunting for church leaders would not be as thriving as it is today if it was easy. But when it goes well, it's like Katie Ryman, who was enrolled in State University, planning to become a teacher, but couldn't get away from her calling for ministry. She just needed the next step. And we met her and hooked her up to a great multi-site church right in her own town. She did not have to move even. They were looking for a leader like her, and she was looking for someone who could help show her the way forward into ministry. Over the next 2 years, she was supported, she was coached. Of course, there were bumps along the way. I remember a moment when she was ready to quit. And I remember more than one moment when the church was thinking about praying about her future, as we say in ministry sometimes. But fast forward, she not only finished the residency, she was hired there. She's the connections pastor there. She's investing in future residents. It looks a lot like a guy named Jeff Brundage, who I met right after he graduated from Trinity up in Chicago. Wanted to be in ministry, wasn't sure how to get there. And we had an opportunity all the way down on the border, southern Arizona. And it seemed odd to me that we would send a guy from Chicago all the way to southern Arizona, but that was the opportunity in front of us. And God knew, which is an interesting thing as I watch these These young leaders step into these organizations at the right time and the right leader in the right place and the right environment, and how they can thrive. When they thrive, they change the narrative about this generation. We all have experienced, or we have read, or we've been a part of what we think about when we say Generation Z, right? From the youth pastor that wasn't long-term to the Taco Bell window drive-through guy who can't get the order right. Last week, I got a text from Jeff, this leader. He finished his residency. He's now been 5 years full-time as a next-gen pastor. He says, Dave, I have an amazing leader in my ministry who just graduated from college a year ago and is looking for something. I know she would kill it as a youth pastor. I'm not sure if you have one of those God-ordained opportunities for her like you had for me, but that would be sweet. So I went on to his staff page, scrolled down at the bottom below all the pastors, and there was a line that said interns. I noticed they had added next-gen/intern to his job title. There were the interns. There were 6 faces there. They all looked like they were 12 to me. And that's Jeff's crew. That's who he is investing in. That's the impact of someone who was poured into. He worked at a place that wanted more for him than from him from the beginning. So that's what we see over and over. They have much to learn, and we've also learned that their bosses have much to learn. 2,000 years ago, Paul said to Timothy and Titus, John Mark, and Barnabas, do it this way. And in 2,000 years, what will the church be like? We're not sure. We're not sure what it'll look like. But we know we will need an older leader showing the younger leader how to do it. And that is Leadership Pathway.
Give him a hand.